Hi Pete's Tersse back on Oswald, and I'm still on the old fractal tip at the moment, right? But very quickly I'm just going to take you into a quick sort of clip from this fractal documentary that I watched to show you how fractals have actually changed and improved your life, your enjoyment of, say, movies.
Use the Force, Luke.
The same kinds of fractal design principles have completely transformed the magic of special effects.
This is a key moment from Star Wars Episode 3, where our two heroes have run out onto the end of this giant mechanical arm, and the lava splashes down onto the arm. My starting point here is to actually take the three-dimensional model and take essentially a jet and just shoot lava up into the air. This looks kind of boring. It's doing roughly the right thing, but the motion has no kind of visual interest to it. Let's look at what happens here when I add the fractal swirl to it. Where this becomes fractal is we take that same swirl pattern, we shrink it down and reapply it. We take that, we shrink it down again, we reapply it. We shrink it down again, we reapply it. And from here on, it's just a case of layering up more and more and more. I've used the same technique to create these additional lava streams. I then do it again here to get some just red hot embers. Then we take all of those layers and we add them up and we get the final composite image. My hero lava in the foreground, the extra lava in the background, the embers, sparks, steam, smoke.
Designers and artists the world over have embraced the visual potential of fractals. But when the Mandelbrot set was first published, mathematicians, for the most part, reacted with scorn.
In the Mathematical Intelligencer, which is a gossip sheet for professional mathematicians, there were article after article saying he wasn't a mathematician, he was a bad mathematician, it's not mathematics, fractal geometry is worthless.
The eye had been banished out of science. The eye had been excommunicated.
His colleagues, especially the really good ones, pure mathematicians that he respected, they turned against him.
Because, you get used to the world that you've created and that you live in, and mathematicians had become very used to this world of smooth curves that they could do things with.
They were clinging to the old paradigm when Mandelbrot and a few people were way out there bringing in the new paradigm. And he used to call me up on the telephone late at night because he was bothered and we'd talk about it. Mandelbrot was saying, this is a branch of geometry just like Euclid. That offended them. They said, no, this is an artifact of your stupid computing machine.
I know very well that there's this line that fractals are pretty pictures but are pretty useless. Well, it's a pretty jingle, but it's completely ridiculous.
Mandelbrot replied to his critics with his new book, The Fractal Geometry of Nature. It was filled with examples of how his ideas could be useful to science. Mandelbrot argued that with fractals, he could precisely measure natural shapes and make calculations that could be applied to all kinds of formations, from the drainage patterns of rivers to the movements of clouds.
So this domain of growing living systems, which I, along with most other mathematicians, had always regarded as pretty well off limits for mathematics and certainly off limits for geometry, suddenly was center stage. It was Mandelbrot's book that convinced us that this wasn't just artwork, this was new science in the making. This was a completely new way of looking at the world in which we live that allowed us not just to look at it, not just to measure it, but to do mathematics and thereby understand it in a deeper way.
This is a follow-up to my...
As someone who's been working with fractals for 20 years, I'm not going to tell you fractals are cool. I'm going to tell you fractals are useful. And that's what's important to me.